So the last video I did was kind of an end of year thing where I was trying to justify to myself that I'd hit some kind of milestone. I was inventing milestones, a new way of considering milestones in order to claim that I'd achieved one. Because actually, like, game development doesn't break up into milestones if you're doing it the way I'm doing it, which is I have a plan but I don't stick to it. And what often happens is a milestone will be like everything to do with missions, all the different ways I'm going to revise the way the mission system works. And then, like, 2 of those types require a new system that I haven't built yet. So do I put the whole mission milestone back until I've done that systems one? But then some of those systems might require something else, and that other milestone has to be moved in front of that. So doing these big themed chunks doesn't work that well. So what I'm doing instead, I've just reorganized my planning document into smaller chunks, basically. So now each mission type that I want to add is an individual one, and I can put them in wherever I like in the order. So it goes like 2 mission types I can add that only depend on current systems. Then there's 3 mission types that depend on a new system, and so the new system is slotted in there. That kind of stuff. So yeah, last one was a kind of recap or like a milestone, kind of where we are now. And this video I thought, because it's New Year's Eve, I would look through this plan and actually tell you what the plan is. I don't like to sort of, I do talk about my plans a lot for heat signature, but I don't like to sort of risk them being interpreted as promises, because the whole point of this is that I change my mind as I go along. Often the way I've done one thing gives me a new idea for a different thing, or invalidates a different thing that I was going to do. So I think I'm just going to kind of read through it all. They're mini milestones now, so they're going to be in kind of a slightly scattershot order, I think. The state of the game now is that it's a top-down, open-world space stealth game. Hopefully you know that by now. And it's got a lot of stuff in there, a lot of system stuff in there, but it doesn't quite have the kind of structure that it's going to have. Maybe it'll be clear what's already in there once I start talking about what's not in there. So the first thing on my to-do list is I'm going to change the heat detection system. Right now it's more sophisticated than it needs to be, and no one understands it. Or very few people get the hang of it. Lots and lots of people die to it. And it's to do with, like, once you're inside a heat sensor, then you get a heat bar showing what your heat level is versus the threshold of that particular sensor, and each sensor has a different threshold, and each time you thrust, your heat goes up, and how much you thrust, the strength of the thrust, the duration of the thrust, all affect how much the heat increases. And when you're not thrusting, it cools down, but then you can also upgrade your thrusters, upgrade your coolant, and upgrade your thrusters in that to affect those things. And that all seemed like the logical way of doing it, but I've spent so much time and effort revising that system to try and get people to understand it, and they just don't. And really, I was trying to explain to my friend Brendan why I was doing this system, why it was important. It's important because, it's not that important, but what importance it has comes down to when there's a heat sensor. I want situations where you have to cut your engines and cruise in, and you've kind of committed to your path and you can't afford to thrust again, and then if you miss the airlock you'll just kind of clang off the hull, and there'll be a kind of tense moment of, oh shit, I fucked it up. Or maybe there's a vision cone and you're going to hit that before you hit the airlock, and you've got to decide, shit, do I risk detection of the heat sensors, or do I drift into the vision cone? And in that discussion with Brendan, it turns out that really you could achieve all of that if you just say that within the heat sensor, thrusting means you're detected. Not thrusting means you're not detected. And that's it, just binary, just like instant detection or not at all. And that's, in one sense that's more punishing, but A, that's super easy to explain. That's just hard and fast rule. If you thrust in the circle, you are detected. If you do not, you are not detected. And B, it's actually better. I've tried it already. I haven't implemented it, which is why it's still on my to-do list. But I just tried playing as if that's the case, as if I'm not allowed to thrust within the heat sensors. And suddenly it's way more tense and way more interesting about kind of like, lining up your shot and going for it and then drifting in and then missing. And then, like, after you miss, there's another tense moment where you're kind of like, oh shit, I can't adjust my course again. I've just got to wait for myself to bounce off, because you're sort of pretending to be a bit of space rock, right? And then once you get out of the heat sensor again, you can come around for another pass and have another go. And it's great. So I'm going to do that. It's going to be the easiest thing in the world. Next thing is the missions. I'll talk about all the mission types. It's really stormy here. I don't know if you heard that. There's rain lashing against my windows. All the mission types that I'm going to do. the biggest change lately in the game is that it used to be kind of limited to, you're either at local zoom, like you see your ship on screen, you see enemy ships on screen, you're flying around to board them, or you're at map mode. And that wasn't technically a separate mode, it was just very zoomed out and you saw the whole galaxy and you could see the strategy map and how your missions related to it. And just before Christmas, and in some of the videos I've shown recently, I've changed the zoom so that it can work smoothly between that local zoom and the map, the galactic level zoom. So every zoom level in between is an area where something can happen and where you'll spend some time. As you're zooming around, we smoothly pull out to show the distance of your journey and that kind of stuff. And it's looking amazing, and it totally changes the feel of the game, gives it this really fantastic sense of scale. And to go along with that, one of the things I really struggled with when I was showing the game out in LA and San Francisco was the mission system. You got a computer at a station and it shows you a list of missions, and while I was out there I changed that so that it would be like a list down the left hand side, and when you mouse over a mission it would kind of move the view to that point of the galaxy and show you what it would affect. And there are loads and loads of problems with it. One of them is that, the biggest one really, is that my great sort of insight, or my great idea for how missions relate to the strategy map, what's the context of the missions, what do they do for you. I don't want them to be just abstract things where someone tells you to do the missions and you have to do them. I don't want them to be purely money based, I don't want it to be just you do this mission because you get money and that's it. But I'm also not going to hand script particular missions, or it's not a finite game, it has to infinitely generate missions, they have to be something that you can always do, but the effect they have needs to be something kind of, I want it to be mechanical and logical and have some kind of, plug into a system. And so my great idea for that was ships will go between the space stations, and if you intercept that ship and hijack it or destroy it, then you've broken that trade route, and that trade route is actually gone from the strategy map. And now, if you break enough trade routes that a station is isolated, you can capture it and join it onto your network, and that way the empires can expand and contract and change hands. That's great, but it completely clashes with the idea of a mission list, because if I give you 3 missions to intercept trade routes, what if they're not the 3 that actually you want to intercept? Now that I've told you there's this rich, interesting system that your missions plug into, you're going to have opinions about what you want to do there. You might, you'll probably want to try and isolate the station that's closest to already being isolated, so if one has just one trade route, then you want to break that. And that's as far as I got with a mission list system, is let's have it intelligently pick missions so that the missions it gives you are the ones you probably want to do. But the truth is you're not always going to want to do that. You might want to capture some particular station because it's got some cool thing about it. You might just want to create your empire in a certain shape, and it would just be so irritating to be unable to do a mission just because it didn't appear in the mission list. And so that whole thing, they just felt really ideologically opposed. They didn't fit together at all. And so I kind of went back to the drawing board and thought, what am I trying to do here? And if I want missions to have a systemic connection to the strategy map and the context of the galaxy, then they shouldn't be chosen from a list. Your faction shouldn't be giving them to you, really. Your relationship with your faction shouldn't be they sit in their office and tell you, go and do this, and you go and do it. It should be much more you're kind of a free agent, and you go out there and it's a galaxy full of opportunities to do these things. And so the trade route intercepts are one of those things. And that means that we scrap the mission computer, I think, completely for now. Certainly I don't have any current plan for what it does, so just get rid of it. And you just fly out into the galaxy, and as you're flying around, if you go near an enemy trade route, you might see a ship going along that trade route, and then you'd intercept it and steal the ship, break the trade route. And whatever trade route you want to intercept, you could just hang around near it until you see a ship. You could wait for an opportunity to do it. There's also a fast forward key if that gets boring. Or you could just fly around the galaxy and see what opportunities present themselves. And then there's all kinds of other opportunities that we can work in as well, like a ship goes past and it's highlighted on your map as having some particularly rare weapon aboard, or it has a component for something that you're trying to invent at the moment. I've talked about inventions before. Those aren't in there either. So the idea is all the mission types would be things dotted around the galaxy. I've talked way too long about this. This is just a couple of items on my to-do list. So the ones that trade route intercepts I've already got working now. So ships go between stations along the trade routes and you can hijack them. The next thing to do on that front is when you hijack them, break the trade route. The trade route currently doesn't disappear. After that, once the station's isolated, to capture it, I want every nearby faction to send a ship out to it, and whoever ship gets there first creates a trade route and they own it, and that's defended then. So your mission would be to, if another faction is going to get there first, intercept their ship and stop them from getting there. So that's the second type of mission. The types of mission that require some system stuff to be done first are agent rescues. So capturing people alive is just kind of is a mission type that I want to get in there. And my current plan for it is that at least one type of mission along those lines will be a ship, okay, so just to back up a sec. It used to be that you just blundered into ships, and all the ships you blundered into had no meaning, and if you had a mission, that created a mission ship, and the mission ship was special, and you always knew where it was and you went there. Now that it's a galaxy of opportunities, you have a sensor, and as you're drifting around the galaxy, ships that enter the sensor range show up on your map, or whatever view you're in at the moment. If you're zoomed out far enough to see them, then they just come up as a little icon, and the idea is each of those icons will be different and will relate to a different opportunity. So trade route intercepts is one of those, intercepting station captures is another, and then having a ship highlighted to say that it has a friendly agent captive aboard that ship, that would be another type. So you'd see like a little person icon, and that means there's a friendly agent there, and if you can board that ship, get inside, get to the jail cell, and get them, then you pick them up and carry them back to your ship, and then fly them back to a friendly station to rescue them. And that will plug into the strategy map in some way that I'm probably not ready to talk about because it's very planning stages. So the system for that I don't have yet is you can't pick up bodies yet. So you need to be able to pick up bodies for that kind of mission to make sense. And then the other type of mission that would also be useful for is bounty hunting. So some ships will be highlighted as having an enemy agent aboard. An agent is kind of what you are, like any kind of special commando, spy, person who's so good at what they do and so versatile or powerful or capable that they are of strategic importance. They are, they will change the tide of the battle in some way, or the territory war that's going on. Particularly because this is no longer a war. It's actually going to be kind of a cold war where outright aggression is not completely out of the question, but everyone wants to avoid it for various political and physics reasons. So the missions to kill an enemy agent will be, or bounties on enemy agents will be possibly to kill them, possibly to knock them out and take them alive, capture them, or possibly either, and there's a bonus for one of those things and not the other. So which of those you get will depend on which faction you're working for, I think. There's one faction who's just like, almost everyone who works for them are just assassins, and they just want to kill people, and they don't actually want to kill people, they're not like evil, they're just completely amoral, and anytime that just eliminating someone can achieve their objectives, that's what they'll do, and they're kind of institutionally set up for that to be how they go about their objectives. You know the saying about when all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail? Well, their hammer is assassination. And then there's a faction who absolutely won't kill ever, and if you ever kill when you're working for them, you are expelled from their faction permanently. Then there are other factions who might say, honestly, mainly we just need you to take him out, but if you can capture him alive, he might have some intel or something, so bring him back if you can, and we'll give you a bonus for doing that. And a captured agent may also have some influence on the strategy map in some way. So, actually I'll just tell you one part of that agent thing. So the idea agents are kind of this, they're both who you play as and also a kind of resource, right? Each life is a different person, each life that you're playing is a different agent, randomly generated. And because you can also capture or rescue friendly agents, bring them back to a station, that agent will then be at that station and become basically a character that you can play as next time you start a life. And you just start a new life either when you die, it's permadeath, if you die that character is lost forever, or you can just fly to a friendly station and kind of retire, just put your character in rest or whatever, and then you go back to the map and you pick a new character to play as. And that'll be a bunch of generated characters that we just added for you, but also anyone you've rescued and put at a station is someone you can play as, or any previous characters you've retired as. And so that's one of the ways that the agent system kind of plugs into that. Because again, this is just all planning stages, I don't know if it'll work out, but that's my idea. So, then, a lot of stuff I was just talking about actually is on my list as, instead of just talking about that, actually do it. Because I keep saying that, one life is one person, and when that person dies, they're gone forever, and each person's unique. Well, you do look unique each time you play the game at the moment, but you're not even, right now you don't even belong to a particular faction. You are just you start near a faction, but the game doesn't know what faction you work for, and so you raid ships of all factions and you do missions for everyone. The whole mission structure is not in there at all. The whole idea of you being allied to a faction and enemies with the others is not in there at all. So that galaxy view where you pick a character, we don't have that in yet, we need to put that in. Once you've picked that character, I think I'll just make it so that you can't board friendly ships, or maybe you can, but if you do anything aggressive, we just expel you from the faction forever. The idea of like boarding friendly ships is not part of the game really. It's kind of like, I just don't want you to do it. Don't do it, it just gets complicated. And then when you die, once this new like character system is in, I guess would be the name for this, when you die we'll just zoom out, and once we're fully zoomed out we'll start highlighting the other characters you can play as, and you click on them and we'll zoom back in. So that's the kind of, I call that the new starting experience. Maybe it's the character system, that's probably a better word for it. Then, I've just added windows recently. Those work, but their hitbox for them is a giant circle, so if you like stand next to a window and fire in the opposite direction, the window breaks. You've got to fix that. There's some problems with the way, when ships have modules destroyed, if the corridor leading to the module that was just destroyed is just a corridor, then the door just shuts and we're fine after a delay for things to get sucked out. But if it's a big hallway and you destroy part of it, everything gets sucked out and we don't have a way of sealing that big hallway. And right now the system is really complicated and it seals all the doors it can so that you have some areas of the ship that are kind of permanently vacuumed. But I don't have good answers for like what happens if you then get into one of those sections. Do you get sucked out again, or is it kind of still vacuum or whatever? It gets very complicated, and even if I could solve it rigorously logically, it would be very hard to explain to the player what those systems are. And it's not interesting either, it's not a part of the game. So what I want is just any kind of breach you can make in any kind of ship can always seal, and then the ships will always be kind of stable after a delay. It'll be chaos when the breach happens, and then it'll be sucked down to space, and then doors will slam shut, everyone then slides to a halt, and then the ship is kind of safe. And that also means I can ensure you can always get to your objective, and that kind of stuff. Another mission type, ships that just have some valuable piece of loot, like this one is marked as having a rare weapon, this one's marked as having a really useful device, like a rechargeable hacking tool or something like that, or components or inventions, which I already mentioned. Ratings, I would like it that once you leave a ship, we tell you how many people did you kill, how many people did you hurt, did the alarm go off, did you leave any living witnesses. Alarms are not on this list because I have added them, and this is one of those things that's just like so blindingly obvious, but I didn't think of it until 2 years into this game. When you set off an alarm, like getting spotted by a camera, or a guard seeing you, and you giving them time to call in the alarm before you take them out, then the ship just changes its course to head to the nearest friendly station. And if you don't get out of the ship in the time it takes it to reach that friendly station, or enemy station from your perspective the Jedi are evil, then you are captured, because you're literally just, the whole station is locked down, it's completely full of enemies, there's no hope of escape. Even if you could kill everyone, you're literally locked into their ship, into their station. So if you don't get out, you're given lots and lots of warning, you're given a big countdown saying it's going to dock with the enemy ship in 30 seconds, if you don't get out, you're fucked. If you don't get out, then your character is captured. But, if you remember earlier, when an agent is captured at a station, doesn't mean they're dead, doesn't mean they're gone forever, that's still someone you could play as in future. But it's an enemy station, so you can't play as them until you capture it back as the faction that they work for. So if you're playing as a Shiga assassin and you get captured on an off-world station, then that character still exists and will still be saved for you, and will it have all the stuff you have? Yeah, I think it will keep your inventory. Maybe we could strip you of inventory because you got captured. Anyway, that character is still there, and if, as Shiga, you manage to recapture that off-world station and now you own it, then you can play as that guy again, because now he's rescued and is just in retirement at that station. So that's how the agent system kind of ties everything together. Optional bonus objectives, I guess I covered that with the kind of capture or kill type stuff. It's not going to go too deep on that, because again, it's not people giving you jobs, it's the jobs just exist out there, and if there are different rewards for that, it has to be kind of natural and make sense for what you're doing. Personal objectives, I'd love it if individual characters had things they want to do. I might deprioritise that because it's starting to feel like it's not strictly necessary. More items, need loads more gun types, concussion grenades, regular grenades. I've got det packs in that at the moment, but I think a whole explosive system where explosives have generated traits like, you know, bouncy, sticky, remote detonated, proximity detonated, lethal, non-lethal, silent, maybe, stuff like that. Sound system needs to be in there properly. It's in there kind of at the moment. Guards can hit gunshots, but they don't hear wrenches being thrown around and stuff like that. AI tweaks to chase you better, to respond to dead bodies, which they don't do currently. Then interior generation stuff, we need to just add some better shortcuts, and I probably need a few more security devices. Got security cameras in there right now. They are good, but it doesn't feel like it's gone quite far enough, but I don't want to work on that just yet because I want to put in extra systems and see what it feels like it needs. Saving, right now, nothing is saved ever. So when you quit the game, your whole galaxy is lost, all your characters are lost, everything is lost. That's quite low down on my list. Apparently I don't think that's that important. But it is important. I think I know how to do it, but it's not going to be a quick job, and it's scary because it's a big technical thing, you know. I should do that sooner rather than later, but it's not that exciting because it doesn't change the game into something that it's not for me currently. I don't know. New station art, John is working on that now. Once he's done that, I'll have to put that in and make stations generate interesting interiors, and they'll look totally different. That's going to be quite cool once it's in there because it'll give them a very different feel. New faction ship art, so right now all the ships look the same, they're all the same faction. We have 4 other factions planned and John's done some brilliant art for those things. I don't think any of the other factions are finished yet, but the main work of that is not actually importing the art, it's creating the system to allow them to have different art, and then also changing the random generation so that they generate different shapes, that kind of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. Feel, just like camera shake, shaders, particle effects, things for like making combat feel nice. And factions need to attack each other on sight, that's a trivial thing, I haven't done it yet, but I will. And then some stuff about just melee combat, not quite feel because it will change how melee actually feels, but how it plays, sorry. I kind of want you to lunge towards enemies if you swing at them with a wrench. If there's someone nearby, I don't want you to have to kind of precisely maneuver yourself with WSD and then click in the right place. I want it to be more kind of like kind of thing. And that's it for the essential stuff. Then there's stuff like story, and there's like new ideas for how we can do tip systems, and lots more ideas for how to improve the interior game, having armoured guards and things like that. Giving your own player ship an interior, that's currently on the low priority list. I don't know, at times that seems utterly essential, and other times I think, well, it hasn't been in there for 2 years and it seems fine. I don't know. Gamepad controls, stuff like that. Having big ships collide with each other, they don't currently. And some tweaks, letting you carry fuel barrels. There's just millions of like, not tiny features. If they were tiny I could just breeze through them all, but just medium features, just little things that are small enough that there's billions of them, but not small enough that they can be easily done. So those are currently in like a kind of second category that's like, I'm not going to think about those till I've done everything else. And then once I've done everything else and it still feels like it needs that thing, then I'll do it. So yeah, that's what I've got to do before heat signature is done. I'm hoping, there's already been some things where things that I considered essential for a long time, I suddenly realised, actually, do we need that? That doesn't seem that important now that we've got all this other stuff, because it's getting better and it's getting cooler, and a lot of things that weren't in the plan are making it better than I thought it was going to be. So that applies to all the things I just said. All of that stuff could change, but it gives you an idea of where I'm hoping to go and where I'm planning to go next. So I hope that was interesting. I hope it wasn't just a random crazy list that didn't make any sense. I realised I talked very fast because I'm very excited about this stuff, but I'll leave it there.